Khan is one of the most popular and powerful politicians in Pakistan. This former playboy and cricket star turned chairman of a major political party is now leading the charge against Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif after accounts held by Sharif's children were listed in the Panama Papers. I sat down with Khan recently for my documentary, Why They Hate Us. Many of you know it was meant to air this past week and it didn't. I have good news. It's been rescheduled for May 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. Set your alarms, your DVRs, your iPhones, your Androids, whatever. Imran Khan, how would you explain why in Pakistan, when you look at the polls, there are really extraordinarily high levels of anti-Americanism? Why do Pakistani Muslims hate America?
Farid, you know, the anti-Americanism was much higher than it is right now. In fact, it's coming down. And it was the war on terror that had a lot to do with it. Because the masses perceived it not as a war against terror, but war against Islam. And if you did any polls, that's how it came across in the beginning. Recently, this is not the case because as the American presence in Afghanistan has gone down, so the people of Pakistan now no longer perceive it as a war against Islam or American war against Islam. So it's now turned actually into a war against terror, which wasn't the case when it started off after 9/11.
A lot of people look at Pakistan and say that Pakistan is a highly radicalized society. If you look at the issue of blasphemy or honor killings or the way in which politicians are murdered by these jihadis, there seems to be a very virulent strain of jihad afoot in Pakistan, mostly killing Pakistanis. Why?
Farid, let me just first say one thing. A religion has nothing to do with terrorism or extremism. In any human community, if you see a breakdown of a human community, you have liberals on one side, you have fanatics on one side, but the masses are always moderate. They can temporarily move towards an extreme when there is some extreme situation. For instance, in the US, if you ask the average American, all of them want peace. But 9/11 pushed them a bit for a while, wanting war or wanting revenge. So extreme situations push the people a bit towards extreme. But on the whole, human communities are moderate. So this idea that a religion breeds terrorism is nonsense.
But Imran, there are lots of people who argue that Pakistan has a radicalized society now because for decades its military and its ruling establishment have funded, supported, encouraged the use of Islamic militants, often very fanatical, in the cross-border war in Kashmir, as a proxy in Afghanistan. The former Pakistani ambassador to Washington, Hussain Haqqani, has detailed in his books the degree to which the Pakistani military has used militants, and that this is the Frankenstein's monster that the state, the Pakistani state, created, which is now, of course, killing Pakistanis.
Well, I agree to some extent what you're saying, Farid, because after the Afghan jihad was over, we trained these groups, including Al-Qaeda, CIA and ISI, trained these groups to fight jihad against foreign occupation in Afghanistan, against the Soviets. These groups should have been disarmed. And when the Americans came into Afghanistan, these same groups then turned against the Americans, because you couldn't tell them that, look, fighting the Soviets was jihad, but fighting the Americans was terrorism. So we had these groups which then, and you quite rightly point out, that's when Pakistan state had a real problem on its hands.
When you look at the attacks in Europe, many of them have been inspired by cartoons that made fun of Islam or the Prophet. And you've said some things that seem to suggest that the problem is that people in Europe are trying to insult Islam. And I guess my question to you is, maybe that's true, but is the response, is the appropriate response, which you seem to be condoning, that people should go out and kill the cartoonists or the editors or the writers?
Farid, how can any person who has iota of being human, how can they condone anything like that? I mean, how can you even think or say a thing that I'm condoning beheading of people and the extreme measures these people take, these extremists take? In fact, it's very painful when you know that a Muslim has committed it. But then we know that just like in any human society, they are extremists. Now, the worry I have is that the more the backlash against Muslims in Europe, and specifically Europe, the more marginalized the Muslim communities get there. And marginalization is one of the main reasons that causes radicalization. So the Europeans should be careful. There has to be an understanding that, you know, they have these Muslims living in their communities, a young population, and if they get marginalized, there is a good chance that few thousand of them will get radicalized. And you don't need many people to create terror.
Imran Khan, thank you so much.
Thank you.